we're going to move on to a more exciting prospect that you brought up before. And this was a guy that I think a lot of teams are going to be infatuated with because they're calling him the bigger version of Deebo Samuel. And it's Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. And we're going to pull his film up here. This guy did everything in Arkansas. Worked out of the backfield, worked in the slot, worked on some sweeps, some jet sweeps over the middle, some screens, some downfield. Basically everything you see Deebo Samuel doing in San Francisco, that's what Treylon Burks was doing to honestly a higher level in Arkansas. So a lot of offenses are going to be keen on getting him, especially the West Coast style offenses like the Shanahans and how they use Deebo Samuel. So maybe a Green Bay Packers at 22 could be interested in Treylon Burks and work him into their offense. But a lot to like in this guy, just watching his tape.
Yeah, no. He's one of the more special players in this draft. You don't really know where he can drop. He'll go anywhere from the top 10 until the mid-20s. It just depends on what teams want to go for a wide receiver after those 3 or 4 teams that we know are going for it. And, Burks, he's got premium size and speed. The ratio is almost perfect. And as Zerline calls it, he has rare weight room strength for a wide receiver. He's just sneaky. You don't see it coming. He's 6'2", so he's not the tallest receiver in the draft, but he's still big. He's smooth when he's running. He has a good release into his routes. He is a very underrated wide receiver when you're talking about it. And he's one of those guys that I'm leaning towards. If the Jets do go wide receiver, he's one of those guys where he's kind of the in-between in play styles between a Drake London and a Garrett Wilson. You kind of get the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because when I watch him, and I've seen other people mention it before, their comparisons with Deebo Samuel, but Lance Zierlein, he comped him as AJ Brown, and AJ Brown with more wiggle, and that's just the two different play styles that he has. He can be the aggressive type receiver, just like we saw there, over the middle of the field, like an AJ Brown, but also do things in the backfield like we saw earlier, the jet sweeps, the screen passes, the getting the ball in his hands and let him work, like you see out of Deebo Samuel. And honestly, if he ends up being like the 3rd or 4th wide receiver off the board and ends up in a great environment, that's going to work wonders for him going into next season, or going into his rookie season, just being in an environment where they're going to force feed him the ball time after time, put the ball in his hands and let him work in space, and just utilize ways to get him the ball is where he's really going to excel.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. I love him as a prospect. Interested to see where he ends up, because as you said, if he gets into a good offensive situation, he could have an outstanding rookie year. But no, his physicals are really good. 6'2", 225, 33.5 for his arms, which is, I believe, the biggest of the 7 wide receivers that we're looking at. He's just a special talent, a physical specimen when it comes to it, and I'm just excited to see where he goes.
Yeah, I think the 4.55 was throwing a couple of people off. I think that was slower than they thought it was going to be at the combine, but 33 on the vertical, 122 on the broad jump, and honestly, the 40 time. Watch some of these highlights. Watch him on the field. He's running a lot faster on the field than a 4.55. And when teams get into their war room and start checking out some of these games on Treylon Burks, they're going to realize that and not take too much into account. That play that was a busted play. Almost dropped the ball, and he was able to break off a guy and turn it into a first down out of the backfield. And here's another one on a nice little bubble swing pass out of the backfield as well. So many ways to use this guy. A lot to like about him. I love him. I think he's going to be a great fit in a West Coast style offense, and I just hope he's there at 22 for my Green Bay Packers.
That would be a dream come true for you.
Yeah.
Losing Devontae, getting Burks.
Yeah, and that's part of the process of replacing a Devontae Adams in your offense could be a first step in a guy like Treylon Burks.